What do you mean? I thought we were watching Star Wars.
Wait, me too.
You have never seen a Star Wars film before, right?
We're gonna fix that later.
I haven't seen a single one ever before, ever. But you know what reminds me of Star Wars? Imperialism.
Wow, Lila. I'm
It's
sure
a
it
great way
does.
to bring into a video. There's definitely a correlation there.
Yep, we're not gonna mention it, but there is. So we're gonna start with the Industrial Revolution.
The Industrial Revolution was explained. You know what that is now. Hopefully you know what the Industrial Revolution is. It's very important. But it caused a great need for immense amounts of natural resources that just weren't available in many countries. Like, for example, England cannot grow palm trees for palm oil or rubber trees for rubber because England is cold and rainy and horrible. Which is why this video is titled Why I Hate England. That's two of the reasons. Cold and rainy. Yeah.
So their machines needed natural resources. So they created colonies that they would then exploit for those natural resources.
Yeah. Now, all European nations did it, pretty much. Every empire that you ever thought of probably created colonies.
Any empire that was any empire had a colony.
An empire that was like an empire made a colony.
Yep, and then they forced natives into forms of servitude to serve their cause of getting more.
They did not treat them well, typically. They tended to kill them, abuse them, or just if they were purposefully not interacting with them, they would push them off of land that was previously theirs, as seen by many early American settlements, which did start fights in which they killed them with guns because, as a saying happens to be, whatever happens, we have got the Maxim, and they have not. The Maxim was the world's first machine gun.
So it's basically saying, we can take you over because we are more powerful than you. You can't do anything about it.
We are, in fact, the big dogs.
Yep, this was typically a European ordeal, but Japan also joined in and
colonized the Pacific.
Yeah,
they colonized
area.
The Pacific Islands. A little bit, I believe they colonized a little bit of Korea, but they didn't really get all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. Didn't get all the way around Africa. Like, they didn't really go too far.
Mm-hmm. With Europeans, it really started, well, not started, but it came to a point at the Berlin Conference.
Yes, the Berlin Conference was in Berlin, Germany, and it was pretty much just like all the European empires coming together to help everyone agree on what land they were going to be given or allowed to take over. It was pretty much just like, here, you have this piece of land that doesn't belong to me, and I'll take this piece of land that doesn't belong to you. But now it belongs to us because we can kill the people that were there or force them into servitude.
Yeah. And with Africa at this time, it was lots of different tribes.
And they were all fighting, which helped the empires a lot.
Mm-hmm. But when they would draw the borders, they wouldn't draw them in according to African tribes and traditions and different peoples. They would draw them wherever they pleased.
Yep.
And the African people would just end up where they ended up. And sometimes that did not end so well. A lot of times it
didn't. They justified this, all of this taking over other people's land and killing, torturing, and erasing all of the culture from these places with something known as the white man's burden or social Darwinism. It's pretty much, because we're white, we're better than them because they're brown and they aren't civilized. I personally don't believe this way. I want that to be known. I'm not racist to the best of my abilities. I'm sure I say things sometimes.
Thank you, Ella.
But I try. Okay, I try.
Yep, and social Darwinism was the theory of survival of the fittest, but applied with
race theory. A lot of these thoughts are still around today, which is modern day racism. It's a lot more. I feel like in some places it's a lot more passive. Other times it's a lot less passive, with things such as the BLM movement, which is in retaliation to modern day social Darwinism, and Stop Asian Hate, all of that.
Mm-hmm. Some of the things that they would go to collect are like guano from like New Zealand. Yeah. There's palm oil, coal, lumber, diamonds, cotton, rubber, silver, and gold. All things that would fuel their machines or are precious metals. South Africa is known for its diamonds.
Even though that's not what they were there for originally. Mm-hmm. I believe they were there for rubber or palm oil at first.
Yeah,
Then they found
there's
diamonds,
that.
and they were like, "Holy we're rich!" I too would be very excited if I found diamonds. And the Portuguese specifically didn't have like super solid colonies anywhere, nowhere near what the British or Spanish had, with the exception of Brazil. They had what is now modern day Brazil, which still speaks Portuguese. See why. But they didn't really get too far into South America due to the Amazon jungle being not. You weren't really able to get through the Amazon jungle, and an agreement with the Spanish that marked the latitude, longitude, right? Longitude is up and down.
Fact checker.
Fact checker.
Fact checker.
It is in fact longitude.
Okay.
It is in fact longitude. Sorry, Reed, a moment of technical difficulty that we had to fix, but it is longitude, and we do appreciate our fact checker for double checking that I am correct, because I was Miss Coliani's favorite student in 6th grade when we did geography. I was your favorite.
Americas.
And North and South America is what we consider the Americas, not just what the U.S. is. So in South America, it was the Spanish and Portuguese. Portuguese had what's Brazil, and Spanish had pretty much everything else. Pretty much everything else. Oh. What? What are you doing?
I'm trying to point at something.
Wailing the mouse around on our little screen. Oh, okay. And so we all know one man is the cause of all problems in America. Christopher Columbus. He was a horrible person. He had sex with manatees. He killed people that didn't deserve to be killed, forced people into a religion that was very, very far from their own, and he was ugly.
The worst crime of all.
The worst crime of all!
Cash crops.
How dare you be ugly? Alright. But why did people colonize in the Americas? Well, lots of rainforest is lots of extremely fertile land, and with really nice temperatures, similar to that of the Congo and the Southeast Asian rainforests. They were easily able to grow lots of sugar, indigo, cotton, all this. So they went there to grow crops and have cash crops. Crops made them lots and lots and lots of money, so they just kept sending more and more and more and more plantation, creating more plantations and sending more people over there.
But these people that they sent over would not work on the plantations.
No.
They would manage the plantations. They took the native populations and they enslaved them, and they forced them to just work the plantations, very brutal conditions.
They weren't very good at it because they all got sick.
Yeah, a lot of diseases that were brought over killed the natives
very quickly. So they turned instead to the warring tribes of Africa and bought war prisoners from the winning kingdoms and took the war prisoners over and made them slaves. Mm-hmm. This is the introduction of slavery.
Yeah, a couple of the natives escaped into like the Amazon rainforest because they knew the land they were able to escape, but a majority of them died. And
which is why there's low populations of truly Native Americans now.
Yeah, the slave trade had a lot of economical impacts.
It was economically a great idea. Ethically, horrible idea. But they made lots of money, and it made it so that the Americas is able to be as productive and have a society in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Sugar plantations, which were the majority of South America, the Caribbean.
North South America, the Caribbean, anything in that Gulf of Mexico area.
They were the most brutal to work on for the slaves just because of the harsh conditions, the harsh weather, just everything about it. It's number one worst.
Number one worst place in the world. It's almost like England. But I clearly don't like England very much. American nationalism. But England was the other country to truly colonize the Americas. They colonized what is now the U.S. East Coast with the original 13 colonies. I feel like if you're watching this video, you probably know quite a bit about U.S. history. If you haven't taken A-Push, take it. It's great. If you have, wonderful. You already know all of this.
Timor, we love you.
Shout out Timor. Love Timor. He was our A-Push teacher, and he's phenomenal. But they were typically much more hostile to Native American populations and started many different wars and just killed them. They never bothered enslaving them.
Yeah. The joint stock companies sent the Mayflower. They landed in Jamestown, and tobacco became one of their number one cash crops, which
it made a lot of money.
It turned life around in Jamestown. What had previously been sending people who died and sending people who died became sending people who made a giant profit, and European nations loved their tobacco.
Yep. And they could grow someone's favorite blend, the king's favorite blend, I believe, of tobacco. Mm-hmm. It's really specific, but that's not really relevant right now. Then jumping back over the Atlantic Ocean and a little bit further south to Africa. Like we said, the Berlin Conference was the scramble for Africa, where just the European empires picking up pieces of Africa they wanted. Specifically, England got Egypt and South Africa and lots of other land they weren't really supposed to have, which is one of the causes of World War One. But Egypt, they took so they could build the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Atlantic Ocean, which means that you don't have to go all the way around Africa to get up to England and to the rest of Europe.
Well, this sounds beneficial for everybody. It was great, but it was most beneficial to the British because they got to tax everybody coming through.
Lots of money. But people would do it anyway, so they didn't have to spend time going all the way around Africa. Yep. And then South Africa, like we said, was for diamonds, even though that's not what they were there for originally. Diamonds is quite literally the most precious material. One of them, I would say. It's the hardest material that we currently have. As far as I know, I'm not in chemistry or any sort of science. I actively hate science. So I don't really care that much. I'm not a geologist. But it was really good for things such as saw blades and other sorts of machines, especially when it's grinded up and dusted on. What are you doing?
I was trying to scroll it, but it's not working. So.
Do you want to talk about that? You can talk about that. You talk about that. You go, Maddie.
Okay.
Cook, Maddie, cook.
So then we shift a little bit to King Leopold II of Belgium. And Belgium took the Congo in the scramble for Africa. There was rubber, there was palm oil. Those were their two main things. And King Leopold is remembered for his horrific acts of brutality towards the enslaved natives. If they weren't working as efficiently or as fast as they wanted, their hands and their feet, they would get cut off. Sure, here. It's very, very brutal. And a lot of the statues of him that exist today are still being taken down, I believe. They're doing their best.
Sorry.
Jokes behind the camera.
Jokes behind the camera. Oh, and the other thing. How would it encourage people to work more efficiently by cutting off their hands? They can't work if they don't have hands.
Yeah, little counterintuitive there.
We're back. Sorry.
We have jumped to South Asia.
We have jumped to South Asia. We've jumped over and we're in South Asia. I consider South Asia underneath everything.
We'll start with India, the crown jewel of England's colonies.
That's another one of the reasons I really hate England. India was very successful pre-imperialism. It's been around literally forever. So I feel like it was doing pretty well on its own until England came along and they had lots of guns. So that kind of sucks. When they came along, they erased a lot of Indian culture. One example being complete disregard of the Hindu caste system that was very firmly in place. If you're wondering what that is, go watch the video Rub-a-Dub-Dub, Religion in a Tub. It's a passion project of mine. And tea. We're drinking tea right now. This is actually an Arnold Palmer.
Clink. Clink. Then we drink.
Pinkies. Tea was honestly, in my personal, I think it's one of the biggest exports out of India, probably to this day, through a company known as the British East India Tea Company. Yeah. Tea became extremely, extremely popular in England after it was first imported from China. And to this day, it's something known as like a national drink, and they're very protective of their tea, even though they didn't make tea.
They just sold a lot of tea. India was also known for their cotton and their
Cotton.
textiles. The British people took their industrialization and they slowly spread it to their colonies. Not enough so that they would also have the Maxim gun, but enough so that British could spread more of the westernized culture there.
Yeah. A lot of that culture is still around today, but I feel like India, for a large part, managed to stand up against it because they didn't enslave the Indian people necessarily. They just didn't pay them very well.
Mm-hmm.
They kept them lower than, but another important thing to come out of India was poppies and opium, which caused the opium wars in China.
It was the British's way of manipulating the trade relationship between China and themselves through the use of India, their nearby colony.
Mm-hmm. And going back into like Southeast Asia, or there's a bunch of islands there, and there's Vietnam, all that. So it was very split, and it fluctuated a lot over the years as to who had what parts. But one major thing that happened in the Philippines was the Spanish-American War. The Spanish had control of the Philippines, and the U.S. Wanted control of the Philippines. So they were actually trying to free the Philippines from Spanish control, like they did with other places, other Spanish colony type places, such as Nicaragua and Panama and Cuba.
America's justification was like, we were a colony, we became free, now we help other colonies.
Yes.
Even though that's not quite what happened.
Not quite what happened. When the Americans got to the Philippines, they were like, oh wait, we actually want like all of this, and we're gonna like stay here, and we're gonna force you guys to like speak English and learn American style, do all these sorts of, and make everything more American. There was a really cool graphic last year I saw of, it was Uncle Sam holding out his two hands, and in one hand there was a teacher, and in one hand there was a soldier. So their options were become westernized or die, which is honestly quite cruel. But in terms of other places that were aided in the Spanish-American War, we have Panama, where I believe it was Theodore Roosevelt, or was it? No, this one was Theodore Roosevelt bought the space for the Panama Canal, right? I believe Theodore Roosevelt did, because I believe that one was Theodore. And he bought the space from Panama for the Panama Canal.
Jump back to the Philippines really quick while a fact checker is checking that. In the Philippines, originally the Americans and the Filipinos fought together against the Spanish because they thought they would be free. They were going at it, and America wins and goes, ooh, actually you can't be free, you're with us now. And immediately the Filipino revolutionaries turned on the Americans in an attempt to attack them, but of course,
they were not successful.
We have the Maxim gun, and they do not.
And they have not.
We got them.
Or bought it, like I believe rightfully bought the space for it, and he didn't like buy all the surrounding area. He just bought the canal space.
Bought the one space so he could dig a canal.
So he could dig a canal that connected the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean through the Caribbean. And yeah, so it connected the major trade routes. So you didn't have to go all the way around South America, all the way around North America, or just go all the way back around to Africa again. Which, honestly, just like the Suez Canal, great economic prospects, though I believe it was probably taxed a little bit less.
Yeah, it had its ups and downs.
It had its ups and downs.
Everything
has its ups and downs.
Yep.
Everything in world history is semi-morally unethical.
Yeah, that basically describes the whole course. Slightly morally unethical.
It's at least a little bit unethical.
Yep.
Most of the time.
So now we're jumping back.
We're jumping back and talking specifically about the British with this one. So they took over Australia, which, if you didn't know, is like hell on earth. Because they have a lot of spiders, and a lot of their spiders are like that big.
They have a lot of scary animals.
They have a lot of very scary. Then they have kangaroos.
Kangaroos are cute.
Kangaroos are cute. But that motherfucker would
sorry,
sucker
our
punch
camera
me.
woman is saying she would.
No, the kangaroos.
Box. Well, yeah, the kangaroos would box us. Kangaroo punch. Oh wait, like. So that's what the kangaroos would do. And
Yeah.
then the giant spiders.
And they have
then the snakes,
platypuses.
And
Platypi?
nobody knows.
Platypus?
Platypuses?
No.
I don't know. But did you know that they live in? Did you know they live in platypusseries?
I want to pet platypus. I want to be like Phineas and Ferb, and I
Oh
want to
my
pet
gosh.
platypus. His name will not be
Platypuses.
Perry. Huh?
Platypuses.
It's platypuses.
Okay.
I was right the first time.
Yep. No, my gosh, it'd be so epic to have a platypus.
Dude, I would absolutely eat up a platypus.
Oh,
But, like-
there's multiple.
Oh.
You can either say platypuses or platypodes.
Platypopes?
No, platypuses. That's the only one that's right now. Where are we? Australia.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they came to Australia and they were on the coast and they were like, "Oh, this place is wonderful." And then they walk in like another 10 miles and they're like, "Holy."
That was a sandwich of swear words.
There's nothing here.
But things that are gonna kill me.
But things that want me to die.
But then they go back to the customer and they're like,
Ooh.
ooh, we could stay here. And they're like, you're serving a life sentence. And they're like, in paradise.
So Australia was a penal colony where the British government just sent a bunch of prisoners, and they were probably hoping they would die in the outback, but the ones that didn't stayed on the coast. So they're like, this place is and then they just developed Australian accents, and now they sound like this.
Cleo!
Emma! The water!
But there were people that did originally live in Australia. They were called Aboriginal people. And as more and more prisoners were sent there and people discovered, the coast is actually pretty great, but don't go in the middle. They started sending more people over, more people were coming, and they kept pushing the Aboriginal people further in towards the stuff that want to kill them.
Yeah.
So that was lovely. Yep.
Which is not nice. It's very, very mean. Other people that got pushed away by the British in Oceania is New Zealand. New Zealand people were known as the Maori people, and they had made a contract with the British to be like, hey, we'll be here, you guys be there, no fighting. Great deal. The British were liars.
All British people are liars.
All British people are liars.